All right, the next exercise we're going to do is a reverse crunch. The most difficult lower ab, or the most difficult core muscle to get to actually activate is the lower ab, because first of all, in most people, it's inactive. It's the hip flexors, much bigger, stronger hip flexors normally take over. What the lower abs do is rotate the pelvis back about 10 degrees. It's not a big movement at all, it just rotates back. What normally happens is the hip flexor muscles, mostly the iliopsoas, end up lifting the leg forward of the athlete, and then that way it just turns off the lower ab because it doesn't have to do anything because the hip flexors are doing it all. So lower ab 101, reverse crunch 101, you're going to be on the floor like this. Your calf will be tucked into your hamstrings. You're going to keep the lower back smashed against the ground. And I want you to think of this. When you're moving the legs back, the legs are just weight on the hip. It's really the hip that's doing all the work. So you can imagine a dowel rod going right to the top of the hip bone and just rotating back on that rod. It'll activate the lower ab and not just the hip flexors. If you're feeling it here, you're activating the hip flexors. So go ahead and roll the pelvis back. That's perfect. I can see that the legs are just along for the ride as weight, and it's not lifting the legs as the exercise. The exercise is the lower abs activating the pelvis. Good job, bring out the way up. Make sure that lower back stays on the ground the whole time. If you find the lower back coming up, it's a sure sign that you're firing the hip flexors. The set of 12 will do. This is lower ab 101. We'll go forward as the muscles, the lower ab muscles become better activated. Cut coaching points. Make sure the lower back stays on the ground. Once again, if the lower back starts to come up, it's a sure sign that the hip flexors are firing. If you extend the leg too far, it's going to put more weight because your legs are further away from the moving joint. If you extend the legs too far, normally the lower back will come up. If you go too far down, the lower back has a better chance of coming up too, so it's just a very subtle movement. And make sure you keep in mind you're just rocking back to the top of the pelvis. Imagine that dowel rod from the top of the pelvis, you're rocking back. You can activate your upper abs by standing up. You're just not putting any weight on them like you would with the legs down on the ground. You're going to be your forearms and your toes. The idea behind the plank is more than the TVA. That's a deep abdominal tissue. TVA stands for transverse abdominis. It's probably the most important core muscle as far as athletic performance because it stabilizes your spine. The tighter, the stronger the TVA, the more stable the spine, the more power you're going to get out of your extremities. So, plank 101 is going to be on, again, on your forearms and on your toes, like this. The idea is that you want to keep it perfectly straight back. The lower back, the lumbar spine shouldn't drop too much, so bring this up just a little bit. Make sure your TVA is engaging. Draw up the belly button to the spine. That doesn't mean you're holding your breath, you're just pulling it in. Keep your head down the whole time. You don't really extend the neck and hold. The idea is basically this is the isometric exercise with the deep abdominal tissue. You're going to have you hold for about 5 more seconds. Then I'll have you drop. This is basically plank 101 because it's the easiest version of the plank. We'll do a lot of these in the future on balls and bed balls, etc. Go ahead and drop. That's good. Okay. Coaching points on the plank. To make sure that your TVA is engaging, and it probably isn't if you've never done planks before, make sure that while you're planking, you draw the belly button into the spine. It's called the drawing in maneuver. Again, it's just pulling it in. It doesn't mean that you're holding your breath. You're just drawing it in. That's activating your TVA. Once the TVA is activated, it's going to be much easier to keep your back perfectly straight. If you see the lower back dropping, that's basically the absence of TVA and upper ab work, and you're not doing anything good. You're actually doing bad for yourself at that point. When the hand that comes across your body, that one's on first, because essentially this is a pulling exercise. If this hand's on first, you're going to be pushing it. It's not a push, it's a pull. The other hand's going to be on top, just along for the ride. You're going to put yourself in a position like this. You're going to lock the arm. The arm stays straight the entire time. The prime mover is the external obliques. It's the biggest muscle of the core and responsible for side bending the body, rotation of the body, and also some spinal stabilization. What I want you to do is basically rotate around an axis that's right down the middle of your body, like so. Now, whenever you're performing really any core exercise, you add in a little bit of movement, side to side, or a little bit of squat, makes the movement a more functional one because these muscles don't work normally on the field or the court or the baseball diamond just while standing in one place. Normally you're doing something else while using those muscles, so a little shift from side to side teaches your body to getting all those muscles to work in concert, so they're communicating with each other, and the external obliques know how to work with quads know how to work with hips, know how to work with glutes, and the other back. So a little bit of shift as you're coming across, keep those arms perfectly straight, and fire the external obliques. No crunching right now, just keep the torso straight up and down. Shift across, keep those arms long. The further away you keep the arms from the body, the more actual weight you're putting on the external obliques, so we'll tuck them in. As you come across, keep that torso straight up and down. You want to shot at about a 45-degree angle. Alright. Very good. Perfect. Alright, key points to remember. You don't have to put any movement in there, but the more movement you put in, the more useful, the more functional this exercise is going to be as far as sports performance. For now, because this is version 101, this is the first one, we're not going to progress this. Keep in mind you're not adding any flexion. I don't want to put any hips in this, we're just making it an external oblique, a little bit of internal oblique as well. And keep the arms long. What will happen is once it gets tiring, the arms will want to pull in like this. If you brain knows, you pull closer to the moving joint, it's going to be easier. You get those arms long, you rotate straight across. This exercise is a V-up position, heavy rotation. A V-up position is when your feet are off the ground. You're flexing your spine by flexing the abdomen, and flexing the hip by flexing the hip flexor. Now in this position, you're firing the hips, you're firing your abs. From that position, we're going to ask mid to rotate. Most of the rotation is going to come from the external and internal oblique. At the same time, he's isometrically firing his upper abs and his hips, so it's an integrated exercise. The idea is, and you don't have to go this heavy at first, make sure you're going to go with the weight that you can perform the exercise correctly. Normally, it's a good idea to start with either body weight or maybe a 5 or a 10. Then it's got a 40. The idea here is to rotate independently of your lower body. You're going to see a little bit of movement in the lower body as it counterbalances. You can see how he's rotating through the trunk and not just through the arms. Moving through the arms is a shoulder exercise. Moving through the trunk is an oblique exercise. And any muscles that rotate the upper body, as you get breathe one. And relax. Coaching points here, if you have to, you can bring the heels down on the ground. It makes it a little bit easier. Make sure that you're not just moving with the arms, you're moving with the trunk as you're targeting the obliques, and keep the spine flexed.